Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Alfred Maudud, your Patent and Trademark Resource Center representative here at the J. Willard Marriott Library. And this is my colleague, Tali Kazuchi, also a PTRC representative. PTRCs are a nation network of libraries that support the USPTO. We are here today to celebrate the 40th anniversary of what was the first patent depository library in Utah. We were established on April 6, 1984 by Julie Hines, who is now Emeritus Librarian. For more than 30 years, Dave Morrison, Librarian Emeritus, served as the representative for the USPTO. Dave and Julie, are you here with us today? Please wave and be recognized. Thank you for all you have done at the Marriott Library. The same year the Marriott Library partnered with the USPTO was the year that the University of Utah researchers made groundbreaking developments in technology and in medicine, such as implanting the artificial heart. Today, the University of Utah and the Silicon Slopes, a federally registered trademark, are host to a vibrant and robust research community. With our commitment to the entire state, I am delighted to introduce Dr. Aaron Rothwell, Vice President for Research at the University of Utah.
Well, good afternoon. I am so honored to say a few words here at the 40th anniversary celebration of Salt Lake City's Patent and Trademark Resource Center at the Marriott Library. I'd like to start by first thanking Alfred Maudud and Tali Kazuchi as the Patent and Trademark Research Center representatives for all the hard work they have done not only to assist the University of Utah, but also students, faculty, and staff, and anyone looking for any type of information, resources, or assistance. So if we could give Tali and Alfred just a thank you for all of their hard work. Also, I just want to thank everyone else this was not a small feat. We have some wonderful workshops, an all-day IP event tomorrow. This was a lot of work, and I just want to thank everybody who was involved. I'm excited to announce that Utah is the first step in the United States, or should we just say the USPTO's inaugural innovation tour, highlighting new hot spots of innovation. There isn't a better place to be the first stop for innovation, rather in Utah or the University of Utah. I think people have heard that the state of Utah is the startup, #1 startup state in the U.S. Yes, But did you know that the U's very first patent was made by a librarian? Yeah. And it was a prototype for a folding cot from researcher George Correa back in 1921. And I can tell you right now, I camp a lot on cots. The ground no longer is relevant. Over the last century, and thanks to innovators, the U has continued to bring ideas to reality, cultivating with patents being granted. Since 1984, over 1,200 patents have been granted to researchers at the University of Utah. In fiscal year 2024 alone, the U's licensing revenue was over $31 million, and there are 24 licenses and 23 patents issued. We have a history of innovation at the U, and I'm proud to say we will continue to build on our legacy thanks to the hard work and dedication of university students, faculty, staff, our partners, our community, as well as our industry partners. And I think everyone is aware 2 weeks ago, the Office of the Vice President of Research, along with our licensing office, launched our very first venture fund of $200 million. So we are committed to helping that innovation pipeline, and it all starts a lot with IP, first being generated from research, to filing that patent. Now, I am so honored to introduce the Undersecretary of Commerce for Intellectual Property and the Director of the United States Patent and Trademark Office, Kathi Vidal. She leads one of the largest IP offices in the world, with over 13,000 employees and an annual budget of more than $4 billion. She is a powerhouse. Through the Secretary of Commerce, Dr. Vidal is the principal IP advisor to the President of the United States and the administration, and is focused on incentivizing and protecting U.S. innovation, entrepreneurship, and creativity. She leads an agency whose mission is to help American workers and businesses collaborate, especially in groundbreaking technologies across all areas of the U.S. and demographies. Dr. Vidal is working to expand American innovation for and from all to bring more ideas to impact. On behalf of the University of Utah and everyone here, thank you and your agency, Director Vidal, for the work being done here. We are privileged to have you and your team here at the University of Utah. And without further ado, please, can I welcome Director Vidal.
Hello, Utah. So excited to be here today. You know, even with a budget of over $4 billion and colleagues numbering into the 13 to 14,000s, it's not enough. It's not enough to reach every community. We need you. And so we're so excited to be here. We're so excited to be working with you. Thank you, Dr. Rothwell, for the kind introduction. And thank you, again, I know that you've been thanked a few times, but librarians Modud and Kasuchi for organizing this just fantastic event. It's my honor to be here as we celebrate the 40th anniversary of the J. Willard Marriott Library, Patent, and Trademark Resource Centers. I can't tell you how excited I am because this has been an area of focus of ours over the last 4 or 5 months. It's been a focus generally for the USPTO, but about 4 or 5 months ago, as we worked with all of our regional offices, as we worked with others across the USPTO on how we can expand all the great work that we do into more communities, the first thing that came to mind was expanding into more patent and trademark resource centers, expanding into more libraries across the country. As part of that, the great team that's here today and some who are back on home base got together and we decided to do a letter writing campaign. So we wrote a very thoughtful and very much an advocacy piece to 600 libraries across the entire country, telling them why it was important for them to become PTRCs, to follow in the footsteps of the Marriott Library, and to offer resources into local communities so that people everywhere have the resources they need to innovate and have the resources they need to be entrepreneurs. So I could not be more excited to be launching our tour here today in Utah, where you set the mark, you set a high standard for engagement, and everything that you've done has brought us to today. Those of you who live in this state have been dedicated to nurturing innovation. We see it clearly in the statistics, especially with the University of Utah ranking in the top 10 of all public schools in the nation for issued patents and revenue generation. But this is not new. There have been innovations here ever since Utah became a state in 1896. Citizens of the Utah Territory created products that made their lives easier and safer. They have always secured patent protection from the federal government. Some early inventions that demonstrate your innovative spirit include an improved burglar-proof lock, a better snowplow for trains. It's not an issue for all states, but glad you all came up with that invention, and a bulletproof shield to protect soldiers. More contemporary Utah inventors have continued the tradition with the electric guitar. I'm excited about that. I play that from time to time. Synthetic diamonds, television, and the artificial heart. And now that innovative spirit has brought the state into an era of unprecedented opportunity. Utah is the fastest growing state in the US. Indeed, I met people in the audience who just moved here, so welcome to the fastest growing state. You've become one of the nation's fastest growing economies, and the area's growing cultural diversity is helping to drive the spirit of innovation. You lead the nation with 37% of residents working in IP-intensive industries, which is amazing. Yes, thank you. We all know those are higher paying jobs, they're more sustained jobs, they're jobs that are solving community and world problems, so thank you. Wages for Utah residents working in IP-intensive industries are 60% higher than other industries. And as I tell people, that's food on the table, it's tuition for college, those are important dollars. And you've helped stimulate a new era of innovation here at the University of Utah. You understand the world-changing creative power of your faculty and students. You also understand how important it is for them to protect their innovations with patents and trademarks. And as I said earlier, the numbers speak for themselves. From 2010 to 2024, university faculty received an impressive number of patents, 1,152 patents in all. You've generated 870 licenses and disclosed 3,129 inventions. I have to say, the licenses are key. Tech transfer is key. We always talk about how important it is to protect your innovation. The reason we want you to protect it is to get the money, get it to market, license it, get it to market. It's all about creating the products and creating the industries of today and the future. More than 330 companies and 750 products have launched based on technologies developed at the University of Utah. But again, these are more than just numbers. They represent inventors such as university alum Stella Markova. I don't know if Stella is here. We always have these great examples, and then I always wonder if somebody's in the audience saying that's me. Okay, not here, but hello, Stella, wherever you are. Maybe she's online. She and her husband needed an inflatable bed pad that was easy to use and affordable while caring for a loved one who was sick and bedridden. When they couldn't find anything that worked, Stella took action. She designed the BedV, an electric adjustable bed wedge that gives patients more control and helps prevent caregiver injuries. It allows someone laying in bed to become more upright with a remote control that enables the upper part of their bodies to rise from 5 to 50 degrees in their bed. She used the skills she gained and the resources she found at the University of Utah, Innovation U, to carry her startup's product from concept to marketplace. She also tapped into the support available through Utah's Regional Patent Pro Bono Program. Free legal services is what pro bono means. I'm sure most of you know that, but, and she was granted a patent from the USPTO for her invention. Your support and innovative spirit within and outside the university's walls support the amazing work of people like her, and the Marriott's Library PTRC supports work from her and innovators across the entire nation. So I just want to thank you personally. This has been something that we at the USPTO have been committed to. We want to expand the innovation ecosystem in the United States. We want more people to participate. For people like you who are participating, we want you to participate at a higher level. We want to provide you with all the resources and support to make that happen. As part of that, in the recent months, we've launched for the first time ever a national entrepreneurship strategy. The goal of that strategy was to get entrepreneurs together, VC together, government together, and think about what are the barriers to entrepreneurship across the nation and how can we change that? How can we make sure more people have access to funding, more people have access to everything they need to start a company and to launch an idea? We also launched, even more recently, for the first time ever, the first ever National Inclusive Innovation Strategy. Thank you. That is a strategy for everyone. Inclusion is everyone. It's those who currently participate in the ecosystem, but it's also those who have traditionally not participated. It covers everything from our children, where last year alone we trained approximately 373,000 children in innovation, entrepreneurship, and intellectual property. It covers our schools, where we teach teachers how to teach innovation and IP and entrepreneurship in their schools. Everything from that to our PTRCs, where we know we need to be in more libraries so every community has the support that they would have if they were right next to our headquarters. As part of that program, we talk about all the great, as part of that document, our strategy, we talk about all the great work that's going on across the U.S. and how we can scale it to make sure that we're having more impact, that we stay more competitive as a country, that we lock down national security, that we lift more communities. So I'm just so thrilled that the PTRCs are such a critical an important part of this, and you need to look no further than across the room and across the university and the library to see that. So thank you for what you do. It is really, truly a public service. It serves people throughout this community, which then serves their communities and comes up with solutions for the world. So we serve at the USPTO, but we know that many of you serve in various capacities. Thank you for what you do. I'm looking forward to an engaging discussion and then celebrating over some cake. Appreciate it. I believe the panelists can join me unless somebody else was going to make some other remarks. Perfect.
Excellent. And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Arden Cook. I'm a student forum host at the Hinckley Institute of Politics. The Hinckley Institute of Politics is a nonpartisan institute at the University of Utah. Hinckley provides an array of transformative experiences for students through internships, forums, and classes. Hinckley forums seek to foster public discourse and civil debate on the most current and pressing issues and bring in local, national, and international thought leaders. Today, we're excited to partner with the Marriott Library for this segment of today's programming. The Hinckley Institute is committed to engaging students in government and public service, and we couldn't be more excited to talk about how intellectual property, or IP, is a vital public good. Today, we are joined by three great panelists. First of all, Kathi Vidal, the Undersecretary of Commerce for Intellectual Property and Director of the United States Patent and Trademark Office, will be joined in conversation by Bryce Hanson and Amanda Lamadi. Bryce Hanson has advised hundreds of entrepreneurs and companies on business planning, strategy, financial analysis, fundraising guidance, product development, and commercialization. Through his family business, Colonesco, he has successfully launched a proprietary product, the Ergo Spout, on Kickstarter in 2018. Following up with a second successful campaign in April 2022, he is currently the Associate Director of the Salt Lake City Small Business Development Center, SBDC, based in Sandy, Utah, leading the center's effort in organizing events and workshops. Bryce holds an MBA in Technology Commercialization from Westminster University. Amanda Lamadi is an engineer and program manager at the Center for Medical Innovation, CMI. She has received her bachelor's degree in bioengineering from Clemson University and her master's degree in biomedical engineering from the University of Utah. Following on FDA, design guideline control, and medical device commercialization, at the CMI, Amanda runs the Bench to Bedside program, a healthcare innovation competition that teaches students from all disciplines, academic levels, and backgrounds to develop innovative solutions to clinical challenges. Beyond her career at the CMI, Amanda has developed 2 medical devices, NeoVita, an all-in-one neonatal scale, and vital sign monitor for use in low-resource settings. Her second device, the Adhesionix fan tip applicator, combats post-operative adhesions, a common complication for women receiving C-sections. Today's conversation will be led by Nick Cockrell, the Managing Director of Community Engagement at the Hinckley Institute of Politics. I will turn him over to us to get started.
All right. Thank you, everyone. On behalf of the Hinckley Institute of Politics here on campus, very grateful to be part of this conversation. The Hinckley Institute, as Arden laid out, is committed to getting students involved in their community and in all levels of government, finding ways for them to become more civically engaged as they go throughout college and into the rest of their lives. So I think this is going to be a great conversation about how the USPTO can and is so important in our community, and is a public good essential for us. So I'm going to start with a question to Director Vidal. We have students here who might not have much background at all on intellectual property or what the USPTO does. So for those students, I want to start with a broad question. Interestingly, the USPTO actually fulfills an explicit mandate in the U.S. Constitution. Can you give us a quick rundown of what that mandate is?
Yeah, I appreciate that question. I will say we're, I think, probably the only agency that's written directly into the U.S. Constitution. We're certainly the oldest. And so our founders understood the need to protect innovation, and they wrote it into the Constitution so that we would actually incentivize the innovation that we needed as a country.
And as a follow-up to that, as you see it, how do these protections promote creativity and ingenuity across the U.S. now and in the past?
So the initial concept was really about promoting creativity. The thought was that if you could have an exclusive right for a period of time, you'd be more incentivized to spend your time, your effort, your money on innovation. I will say, although that was the original premise and it still works today, a real important part of intellectual property is not just making sure that you innovate in the first place, but as I said in my remarks, making sure that you have a patent right that allows you to attract the investment so that you can get your ideas to market. Because nobody's going to invest in an idea if they think your neighbor is going to be able to create it and copy it. They really want to invest in something where they know they're going to get a return on their investment.
Gotcha. I was having a conversation with some folks, including our librarians, before we started here today, and they put a thought in my mind. I'm curious if you have any remarks on this front about like the USPTO and its database as such a wealth of resources, like documenting decades and decades of U.S. innovation. Is there something, like, for those who might be conducting research in their field, like, how valuable do you see it as, like, this hub of innovation and inventions?
I thought you were going to tell me they had a better answer than me, which I would not have doubted that. I would not have doubted that because of all the amazing work they do. So one of the purposes behind the patent system is not just to make sure somebody gets an exclusive right for a limited time, but to make sure that you're disclosing what you're innovating so that other people can build on it. So if you're interested in innovation, coming to a resource such as this PTRC at the Marriott Library and working with the librarians to understand how to do the searching, how you can look at innovations in your area, then you can better understand, has somebody protected this? It may give you an idea. You may see a couple different patents on different technology and say, ooh, I would have done that better. Maybe I'll do an improvement patent. Or you may think about combining ideas. So it's just such a wealth of information on innovation in whatever area that you're interested in, where the PTRC librarians who are super skilled can really help you dig deeply and think about innovation from the perspective of that history.
Thank you. So now I'm going to turn a little bit to Bryce here. You, in your role at the Salt Lake Small Business Development Center, you've helped not only yourself navigate this process of protecting your ideas, but others as well. If people come to you and you think they may have, or they think they may have a protectable idea, walk us through the thought process or the conversation process that you have with them and see where you might end up.
Yeah, Nick, can you guys hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. So everybody's different. Every situation is a little bit different. And so when people come to us, when they come to me and they say, I have an idea, and a lot of people have ideas, one of the first things I like to do is there's a framework I learned probably 10 or 11 years ago, and it's basically looking at, asking the question for the entrepreneur or the client who's coming in and trying to figure out, first of all, how far are they down this road of this idea? Ideas are generally a dime a dozen. As you develop an idea more and more, the more valuable it becomes. And so a lot of times people are kind of scared about their idea, but if it's just an idea, it's really not worth that much, even though you might think it is. But just think about this: if you're an entrepreneur and you have an idea or two or three, every other person next to you has an idea or two or three ideas. And so if it's just an idea, it's like no one's going to really steal that, quite honestly. It's just as you develop further and you actually get some traction in the market, you can start seeing some competition down the road. So really, right at first, there's there shouldn't be a lot of fear. So secondly, I'll go through this framework, which is, if you're going to try to patent an idea, do the incumbents in the industry, do they have power over you that they could keep you from going into the market in any of the, maybe it's the supply route or, with access to the markets. And then secondly, with that framework is, if you do patent it, are you able to protect it against expropriation by those incumbents? So that's kind of where I first start.
Thank you. Turning now to Amanda, you are one of these inventors and innovators that we're going to be talking about throughout today and this week. You've been involved in medical innovation in our state. Can you tell us about some of the work that you've done and put out into the world?
Yeah, of course. Oh, I don't know if this is on,
It's
but,
very much on.
okay, good. So I've kind of worked on 2 projects since I've lived in Salt Lake City. The first was NeoVita. So as you guys heard before, this is an all-in-one neonatal scale and vital sign monitor. So I made this kind of with the intent of it being used in low resource settings. I was looking primarily for use in India, in very rural areas, because it matched with my research. So with that, we could go and weigh children, measure their blood oxygen levels, measure their heart rate, and then their core body temperature. So that was something I started as part of a class project here, and then still continue to work on with some of my classmates. And then for a second project that I've worked on, it's called Adhesionix. So typically, whenever women have C-sections, there's a very large surgical incision made, and whenever you go and close that incision, the 2 healing tissues will sometimes heal together. And so that creates very painful adhesions, and that's a complication that results from almost every C-section surgery. And so we were looking at that, and typical solutions are film-based, but they don't really work that well. Doctors don't like using them for different reasons. And so we found that gel-based adhesion barriers are way more effective, but there's not really a great way of applying them. Most doctors would put the gel on their finger and then just kind of put it over the incision. And so we created a new syringe tip that looks like a fan and essentially can create one consistent layer that you could apply over the entire incision. So with that project, I competed in Bench to Bedside, which is a program that I now won and then received funding from the Eccles and Marriott libraries. And so that's something that I'm still continuing working on now.
Thank you. I mean, you mentioned briefly the Bench to Bedside program. Can you tell us a little bit more about that and how that's kind of building the next generation of innovators?
Yeah, of course. Actually, the BedV project that you mentioned went through Bench to Bedside. So Bench to Bedside is a healthcare innovation competition. It's run by the Center for Medical Innovation up at the University of Utah Health. So basically, every single year what we do is we teach students how to find a clinical problem. We connect them with physicians who want to work with them, how to build a solution to that problem. So I'm an engineer at the CMI, so I help students prototype. And then at the end, we help them develop a viable commercialization strategy. And so as part of that, we'll pay the cost of a provisional patent, connect them to law fellows who will help them write that provisional patent, and then connect them to law firms who will do pro bono work to submit that for them.
Thank you. Coming back to Bryce for a moment here, I mean, you have had your own innovations and inventions as well. Could you give us an overview of a few that you're most passionate about or would like to talk about here? And while you're doing that, I also want to kind of take you back a little bit. Talk us through like maybe that process when you decided or you found out, hey, this is a protectable idea. Maybe one of the first times you had to go through that process. What was that like? What obstacles, what resources did you look at for that?
Yeah, great question. So my wife and I, we've created some kitchen tools, some products for the kitchen, focused on mason jars, so attachments. And so we created this, it's called the Ergo Spout. And when we first started, I wasn't sure, like, okay, how patentable is this really? I mean, this has been, it's a jar, basically, something on top of a jar. And so I engaged an IP attorney to help me, essentially give me some feedback on what's the patentability on this, and they give a percentage. And so we pretty quickly kind of thought, well, we're not going to get a utility patent on this. So we want to protect it. We want to protect our IP. And so we went the route of a design patent after we had finished the development and got feedback from customers before we went to market. And we also decided to go the trademark route, which almost always is a pathway to protect your idea in some way. At least you can have a brand that you can protect. But then we did, based on, again, the utility patent not being an option, the next best thing for us was a design patent, which is, basically the look and the feel of your invention. Someone can't just, mock that up and take that and say, okay, we're going to call it something else and go to market with that. So we thought that was the best approach at the time, and kind of what we could do. Yeah.
And this is for either you or Amanda. What, if any, interactions did you have with our local U.S. Patent Resource Center here on our campus? And that can be in your capacity as an inventor or in your capacity as an advisor to local innovators.
So for us, so we'll have different resources. We have typically at the SBDC where we'll give referrals to 3 or more people, and at times I'll refer people over to the center here, give them the information, and they'll reach out. And part of that too is, if I understand you here, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you can help people, and I've sent people here for that, is to help with some patent searches or trademark searches. So kind of as a resource to teach them how to do that a little bit better. And so I've sent people over to help them navigate, kind of do it yourself, but get trained a little bit directly by the folks here.
Amanda, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, so I have known Alfred and Tally now for 3 years. They're absolutely amazing. I've worked with them in the capacity of a student, where they have taught me how to do prior art searches and how to look for devices that are similar to what I'm trying to create. And then along with that, through the Bench to Bedside program, we've had Alfred and Tally come and teach our students how to do that, and then just talk about all the different resources they offer, so that any student team that's competing with us can make sure that their solution is something novel and that they want to continue working towards building it.
Thank you both. I think that really puts an emphasis on the importance of these patent and trademark resource centers that Director Vidal talked about in her opening remarks. But shifting gears a little bit here, I want to talk more directly about how we can talk about IP, patents, trademarks, other protectable things as a public good. I think some of our students, many of our students in our audience who might not have much background in this, may see IP protections painted in a negative light. Maybe in news articles talking about like an overly protected invention, maybe related to medicine or another essential. But we rarely talk about the virtues of IP protection and how essential it is to spurring innovation and the public good that it provides. We live in such a knowledge-driven economy that we need these sorts of protections. So this is for all three of you, but we'll start with Director Vidal. How do you think we can better frame a conversation about IP as a public good? That can be through USPTO direct outreach, or just tell us about some of the messaging tactics that you've been working on.
So we have been working on that because there has been a negative dialogue that some people have perpetuated for problems they're trying to solve, whether they're worried about drug prices or something else. And then even within the academic community, sometimes, not here, sometimes we hear that people are hesitant to use the patent system because they don't want to lock up innovation. It's the opposite. I mean, take COVID, for example, right? So when companies had to quickly come up with a COVID vaccine, first of all, there was the mRNA that was patented a while back. So that meant that that was not held in secret. Nobody kept it in secret. It was patented and then released so that it could be built upon. For the companies to collaborate, so when it came to the COVID vaccines, it wasn't one person in a lab that was doing it. Companies had to talk. And people aren't going to talk and share their ideas unless they know that they're going to have the benefit of what they're contributing. So the fact that there is the patent system allowed people to collaborate in a safe way, so it encourages that collaboration that has saved so many lives across the country when it comes, and the world, when it comes to the COVID vaccine. So that's one thing. The other thing is, if you patent it, you can control it. So if you don't patent it, if you would just take the COVID vaccine, if it had just gotten out there and somebody who was not as skilled started developing it, it may have been that we had inferior products enter the market, right? Things could go in a lot of different directions. It means that other countries could have taken the ideas and developed their own vaccines, which may not have been as healthy and would not have contributed to the economy. So what the patent really does is it gives you control. Right? It doesn't mean that you're locking it up. You decide whatever you want to do with it. If you want to maintain the quality, if you want to collaborate, if you want to make sure that it's out there, you can always patent it and then decide that a lot of other people can produce it. So it really gives you the power and control over innovation, and that's what we need as a country. We need the power and control over innovation to make sure that we can get the investments and can get things to market. And then that's what underlies all of this, right, is the investment. So say the folks that were working on the vaccines, say they didn't patent it. It would be hard for people to then invest, and maybe not necessarily for the first vaccine, because a lot of things happen quickly. People were in a rush. Sometimes minds will go forward with something even if there's not an ability to invest in it as much. But if you look at the COVID vaccine, think about that compared to the over-the-counter tests. Now, over-the-counter tests you can't patent so well under the current system. There's a push to change that, but diagnostics you can't patent. So if you look at the vaccine, every time there's a new variant, we have a new vaccine. The COVID test over the counter, I mean, you're hit or miss. You're like, I'll take one every day. It might turn out positive, it might not. I still may have COVID, because nobody could patent it, right? So the people who are making those weren't going to invest the time and money and energy into improving that every time because they weren't going to get an ROI on it. They weren't going to get a return on investment. So if you think about the purpose of patenting to the entire ecosystem, it's very positive for the country. Even when it comes to drugs, I will say the generic drugs like the patent system because there would be no generic market if it weren't for the drugs being developed in the first place through the patent system. So sometimes people come up with a negative dialogue because they think that maybe that's the right way to solve a problem. But if you look at patents overall, they encourage that innovation in the first place. They get it to market through funding. They allow collaboration. They allow all of this to get into the public sector. Now, I could go on and on about the other types of intellectual property. I mean, trademarks allow you to license out your product to maintain the quality and brand. You can still collaborate with other people. You have control. I will say one thing that we developed that the librarians have access to, and you do as well, is an IP identifier. So if I'm saying all these words and you're like, I don't really know the difference between a patent and a trademark, what about a copyright? There's a quick, easy test you can take. Feed in your idea, and it'll tell you the kinds of intellectual property you need in order to make sure that you're protecting your IP.
Thank you. Now for Amanda and Bryce, if you have any follow-up to anything that the director just mentioned, or I'd love to hear your the personal impact if you've had to deal with the patent system and defend a patent or anything like that. What have been some of the virtues in your own life when it comes to navigating this process? Let me start with Amanda.
Yeah, I thankfully have not had to defend a patent. I don't know that I would be qualified to do that. But I do think in the medical device industry, and especially the pharmaceutical field, there is a negative connotation around patenting, because I feel like a lot of people do think that inherently would create a monopoly. It's like once you own it, that's it. You can prevent anyone else from doing something in a very similar field. So I think that the thing that we try and communicate is part of what you said, you have ownership over your idea. You get to control where it's used, how it's used, and things like that. So that's something we try to let teams know, is this is the best way for you to make sure if you're going to let someone else use this or let someone else continue on with your project or idea, that they're doing it in the way that you intended, and then it's not something that ends up functioning differently or just doesn't follow what your initial intention was.
Bryce.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting discussion because, going back to Director Vidal, what you mentioned is, this is an incentive. I mean, if you kind of take a step back, take a long view for 250 years or 230 or so when the United States was officially organized as the republic as it is, with the U.S. Constitution. The prosperity now, obviously with caveat, during that time there's been inequities throughout the history. But on the balance, as far as the progression, the United States, the prosperity is just, it's out of this, it's remarkable in 250 years. And part of that, there's more than one reason, but you look at the patent law and the innovation that people can invent and create something and then have some time to be able to exploit that to their benefit. That's the American dream, essentially, is to be able to benefit long term. Now the question is, how fair is that? It's that age-old question of, where do you get the incentives, right, from prosperity? So, it's, when I created our product, and tried to go to market with it, had we not had any protection, it would be a lot harder to want to do that, quite honestly. It's a lot safer to do something else than to risk your money, and because you're risking your own money as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur. It's right here, it's my money. And debt, essentially, right, if I want to do that. So I'm not going to risk that if there's really no chance. And that's part of that's the calculus, is in the end, we may not make enough money to make it worth it, but at least it was an opportunity, right, in a dream. And then later there's other opportunities and other dreams. That's part of that cycle. So I've definitely pushed back on anybody who says that it's not fair to have the patent system or have patents. I think it's short-sighted. To me, it's to be a little more blunt. It's like killing that golden goose, right? The goose that was the goose that lays the golden egg. That there's got to be incentive and that essentially that opportunity to protect what you create.
Can I just follow up
Absolutely.
on, so, take Amanda, for example, right? She created a market, right? When it came to cesarean sections, she created a market. She doesn't own that market, right? So she's got a great tool that you can now disperse the gel. So she's saving a lot of women a lot of pain. But that doesn't mean somebody can't learn from her and say, that's great. I have another idea on how we're going to disperse it. Or I want to collaborate. You have a new gel. Like, let's get together on this. So it still encourages and incentivizes competition. But now you have a market for that competition. So there's much more competition than was incentivized than if you didn't even have a market. I will also say on enforcing your patent, sometimes you don't even need to enforce it. People now know it's there, right? People in your space are going to know that you have the patent on that. So they may not even go into that market. So that's helpful. But I will also say there are cheap ways. So for example, if you had made something that you would sell online, you can use trademarks or patents to have the online store just take down the competition that's unfairly competing against you. So even if, sometimes you have to go through a long legal process, but there's a lot of tools. You can even block stuff at the border. We have a lot of product coming into the United States that's inferior. Houses have burned down because of the faulty electronics. I won't even get into the medical space. It's horrible. It's horrible for the country. But to the extent that you have IP, you can stop that at the border and register your IP with the Customs and Border Patrol. So there's so many different options. And I think just having local resources, and we have great offices throughout the United States, regional offices that are doing amazing work, but there's only so many of them. But being able to go into your library and ask these questions, they can help you with searching, but they also have a lot of knowledge on this and can really point you in the right direction.
Director Vidal, actually as a follow-up to that, what should innovators, inventors, holders of patents or trademarks know? Like, what is the USPTO doing to protect American innovators from trends that are happening globally? You talked about like U.S. border and customs enforcement, but is there anything else kind of on this global scale that USPTO is looking at or examining to protect U.S. inventors?
Well, that's another reason we're here in Utah. We actually have a China Roadshow. I've got some of my colleagues in the third row here who are going to be presenting tomorrow at a China Roadshow. So we are trying to help you with competition with wherever you're operating across the globe. And part of that is thinking about what do you need to see in other countries. Our China team, we meet once a month, at least once a month. I was in China recently with part of our team. We're understanding the dynamics. We comment on their legislation. We've commented on, I think, over 140 pieces of legislation in the last couple years. I mean, there's a lot of extensive work we do through our programs throughout the entire world. Just like we have people throughout the whole US, we also have attaches throughout the world that are really keeping their thumb on the pulse of what's going on. So there are a lot of resources the USPTO offers on that. Oftentimes once you start to get successful, you think, what about other regions? Like, should I be patenting in other regions? Should I enforce? What about there's counterfeiting over here? How do I deal with that? The courts aren't fair in some country. Like, how can the USPTO help me with that? So I will say, if you have any question about anything related to the IP ecosystem, reach out to us. You can reach out locally. If we don't have the answers, we will get you in contact with somebody who does.
Thank you. Also sticking with you, Director Vidal, you've talked about in your opening remarks this innovations tour that you've kicked off. You've also done other public outreach efforts, such as the IP Champions program that the USPTO is working on. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
So I will say it's we, not me, in terms of kicking it off. It's a whole team effort, and we've been so focused on making sure we're reaching everyone. And IP Champions just builds on the great work that the PTRCs have been doing for 40 years. I mean, not all of them, obviously, but the goal is to make sure that we're in communities, that we're reaching people. I mean, the work we do with schools is about that. The work we do with our Camp Invention is about that. The IP Champions itself is about having people who actually work for the USPTO in regions be able to go out to schools and help teach communities about intellectual property, because only when we all think about what role we can play, whether we're in the USPTO, whether we're in the audience, or outside the audience, are we really going to reach everybody and make sure that we grow a whole new era of people who are interested in innovation, are interested in opportunity. And I will say, I go across the globe and talk to kids. There's not one kid in a classroom who doesn't get excited about some great idea they have. I will say, I mentioned this in a talk I had a little bit earlier today here, so if your repeat, I apologize, that I went to Hawaii. I was on a base there because we're also trying to support the military. And before I went into the classroom, the kids were supposed to come up with inventions and put them on the wall. And they had different categories that they could fit into. Some of the categories had maybe 1 or 2 inventions. The climate board was like plastered. You couldn't even see the word climate on it because the kids are so excited. They're so empathetic. I mean, one kid had this idea, perhaps not scalable, maybe you could tell me this, about designing gloves that would absorb plastic particulates as you swim through the ocean. I mean, amazing. I was in Rota, Spain at a military base, and the kids there, like everywhere, there's issues with kids, their mental health, the way they connect with other people. On the school door, there was a little sign where each day the kids have to say what category they're in, how they're feeling, so they can understand this. So what did the kids invent there? They invented a pocket therapist, where you could have this little therapist in your pocket and you could push the face that most resembled what you were feeling. So if it was sad, you would push it and the pocket therapist would say, have you thought about reaching out to a friend today? I mean, kids have ideas everywhere, and it's our job to nourish those ideas, to let them know their opportunity, that they can protect them, and they can really bring their dreams to reality.
Thank you. To close out my portion of this Q&A, I have a final question for both Amanda and Bryce. When we heard from Director Vidal that this innovative spirit starts at a young age, I don't know if or how soon you two realized you wanted to be an innovator or an inventor, but to those students that are in the audience that are maybe in these early phases, is there any sort of advice or feedback that you would offer them as innovators in your own field? I'm curious to hear from you all.
Yeah, I guess I would say find people to talk to, like find mentors and things like that. That's something that it wasn't really until I got into my undergrad degree and things like that that I started talking with my professors and the ones who were more involved with like entrepreneurship. I was like, hey, I think I actually want to be involved in more of that side rather than just like medical device manufacturing, things like that. So being able to talk to people and having them kind of guide you and help you figure out the right questions to ask is really what helped me. And I mean, I feel like I'm still in that stage, so still what I do. And I guess that would be my key piece of advice.
I would say in addition to that, start where you're at. So look at what the adjacent possibility is for you. So, a lot of us have a lot of ideas, and some of them are really large, like change the world, but they might cost $2 billion to start, or maybe something a little smaller. It might be, that's really truly going to cost $3 million to start, and you're at the point where maybe I can go start something that I have $10,000 to put into it, or less, or maybe $1,000. And so it's really start where you're at. It's never too late to start, and then there we can start building. So if your skill set is in a certain area, it's like, okay, what can you do? So look at who do you know, what do you know, what's your experience, and maybe what's your resources. And so if you look at your ideas and you just match up your ideas that you have on the wall, just write all your ideas that you're looking to do, and then match it against those three kind of areas of expertise, prior experience, resources, who you know. And then if there's a mismatch in some of those, then I would say put those on the shelf a little bit and then go after something that you can do now to build up your entrepreneur know-how and experience.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to open it up to a quick Q&A here for these last few minutes. So start thinking of your questions. We're going to start with 1 or 2 questions from our student, Arden Cook, and then he'll bring you the microphone after this.
All right, so I have a question for all of you really quick. So we have students here from all corners of campus, from STEM majors to humanities. Why should students care about IP?
Well, in the case of bench to bedside in particular, It really gives you the opportunity to protect what you've made and then be able to move forward with that. So we tell students, like, we're always telling them, please do not have a public disclosure before competition night, things like that. So make sure you protect your ideas so that you can continue moving forward with them and just have that ownership. So it's exciting to be able to say that you have a patent, and it's exciting to be able to say that that's something you've worked towards, because I think the overwhelming majority of students haven't. So I think that's my key thing.
And I'd add to that is maybe sometimes it's not worth doing the IP quite yet, unless maybe a little bit. So I'd say, like, you know, a provisional patent before the full patent, and then you can go get your feedback from the market. Occasionally I'll have people come visit me who've already spent money on a patent, and they probably should not have done that quite yet until they kind of proved out the best they could the market. And sometimes it's a little harder depending on how complex the thing you're doing. But there's a little bit of a caveat there sometimes.
And I would just say it's the future. I mean, the future is intangible assets, and whether it's your ideas, whether it's your artistic work, whether it's a song that you performed, and the only way to really get that out to people and have impact, even if you don't care about the money, is through IP protection. And so it's important to learn about it and to know when it's a tool, right? So figure out when you need to use it.
Thank you very much. And for my second question, for the university, this is for Director Vidal. For the University of Utah students interested in public service, what type of opportunities / careers might be available in the USPTO?
All of them. Seriously, all of them. So no matter what, we're a business, right? We're a $4 billion business that serves the country. You can work remotely. Most of our workforce is remote. You can stay here in Utah and work in any of our divisions. So just like any other organization, we have a division that deals with hiring people and teaching them and promoting them. We have an IT division that's working day and night converting our COBOL systems to new technology and working on AI. You know, we've got people who are working on patents and trademarks, and so you can work in that field. You could be one of the trademark examining attorneys, or you could work in support of that trademark function. So any role that you would find in any other organization, we have at the USPTO. It's a phenomenal group. I will say we got together recently and listed all the great reasons to work at the PTO. I'm going to post it on my official LinkedIn page soon, because it was everything. Great colleagues, people are smart, they're engaged, and they have a bigger purpose, right? Everybody at the USPTO, we want what's best for the country. Like, we want to support people. So what greater mission or vision could you have for your life?
All right, now it's time for audience questions. I see a hand right here. If you have them, keep thinking. We'll bring you to net next.
Yes,
I think it's on.
okay, so a question to Amanda. Since you mentioned you have full control of where your IP is used and how it is used. If you invent as a university, your IP belongs to the university, you don't have as much as the right of first refusal. How does it constitute having the full control? Thank you.
Well, so I guess in the case of Bench to Bedside, we don't always have student teams that have their patents go through the technology licensing office here. So I guess in the way that I was speaking of teams who come up with their own ideas that are not using substantial use of university resources. So that does change whenever people come up with ideas in their research labs, or maybe it's through a class, things like that. That is where the university does have, I guess, a right to the students disclosing to them and then filing the patent in that way. So whenever I said that, it was towards student inventors who have kind of come up with this independently. Right here.
So Director Vidal was mentioning how using the patent office as a resource for looking at prior innovations and then thinking of ideas to improve them, or as a combination of different ideas. And so my question, as someone who's part of a startup and working on innovation, navigating the preparation for a patent application, and maybe your idea exists in a space that is sort of taking elements of different ideas, how do you navigate so that your application is not rejected for obviousness?
So I will say that we do have, oh, thank you. It's always hard to talk to somebody when there's people in front of you. So I will say we do have pro bono services. So starting at a PTRC is a great place to start. If you need a lawyer to help you through that process, we have free lawyers across the country, including ones that serve Utah. They do incredible work. You need to be under-resourced to actually use them, but even if you aren't, you can go to them to get thoughts on where you can go to get that type of help. And then the patent examiner, so when you submit your application, obviously you want to do as good a job as you can in describing your invention in a way that's not duplicative of what others have done. That said, a lot of times you may not know what was done before, so our patent examiners, their job is to work with you, to say, okay, you submitted this, but look, this other person has that same idea, and you get to amend it. So as you move forward to secure your patent protection, you get to amend your patent so that you can really focus in on what your invention is. But I would encourage you to work with a PTRC, work with lawyers, or whoever you want to work with to make sure that whatever you submit is robust enough that you can draw from it for those amendments. Because if you don't have it in the application, it makes it much more difficult. Thank you.
We have time for just a couple more questions. We'll start up here.
Kai Cook, anesthesiology. I wonder whether, Dr. Vidal, whether you could share some best practices on how we could use metrics related to inventions or patents to do personnel performance reviews or promotion criteria. It's not all about quantity, quality. How do you measure that? If it's a patent, it takes years, right? So what have you come across as best practices for those kind of metrics?
So that's really interesting. I will say that we do work with the group Autumn, if you know them, that work on tech transfer, and with other groups, because we really want to make sure that at least universities, and I'm sure it applies to companies as well, that they're not focused just on publishing, that they patent first, and that that's taken into consideration for promotion and tenure. So some universities are doing that really well. They're recognizing that that if they don't have that in the system, then people, and that people are only rated on what they publish, or in an organization rated in other ways, nobody's going to be incentivized to make sure that they patent the technology. So to me, I think that's first and foremost. I do think that some universities, and I'm using that as an example, but for corporations it could matter as well. I mean, looking at the value of the patent in terms of, was it licensed? Is a corporation using the patented technology? So I think there's a lot. It's not an area that we particularly give advice on, but I have seen examples that I think are very positive, and I hope that more people adopt models such as that, because it's going to help the individual organization, whether it's a university or whether it's a company. And at the same time, it helps the country, because you can always license the technology out or do something with it so that we can create more jobs and bring more ideas to market. Thank you for that.
All right, this is our last one right here. We'll get the mic to you. One moment.
All right, there we go. So this is a question kind of future facing. You know, there's a lot of talk about the use of AI in terms of where that's going. We could probably spend a whole day talking about AI and its role. But I guess kind of tucking that into the question of, you know, where do you see the USPTO changing? This is an organization that's been around since the Constitution, right? So, you know, kind of what do you see on the horizon that's next, that's exciting? Does that incorporate AI? I know it's a very open-ended question, but you're in charge, so we thought we'd ask you.
So I'll address that in a couple ways. One, we want people in the U.S. to adopt AI, right? It's the only way that we're going to be able to scale innovation and come up with solutions more quickly. So as a result of that, first of all, we are providing guidance to the president and the administration on AI policy. And that policy is about creating rules so that people know the clear rules around the use of AI. So we've created inventorship guidance, which essentially says you have to contribute, right? You can't just take something from AI and patent it. And the reason we did that is because we wanted to make sure people knew what the rules were when they were applying, and that they were inventing, so that we had a real person who could then get a product to market. If we just patented anything in the AI space, all of a sudden you could lock up the system. So our goal is to keep that balance. It was built into the Constitution as we go. We put out other guidance on what you can patent that's in the AI space. If you're doing something in the AI stack, we put out what's called patent eligibility guidance. We're also working on guidance related to copyright, whether it's, can you train with copyrighted data? What about the output? What output is infringing? There's harder, more difficult issues that could undermine the entire IP system that was built into the Constitution if we don't solve for them in the right way. One of which is as we talked about, you can't get a patent if somebody else has done it before. Well, what if you set AI loose, and our Australian counterparts did this. They went in the back room and said, invent every chair. Now, if they were to push that out on the internet, nobody could get a patent on a chair anymore. Because of that, we call it prior art, but it's like, it shows that it was invented before. So we're struggling with those things, because that's not written into our laws right now. Right now, anything that's out there, if it's publicly accessible, would count against if you're getting a patent. So everything we're doing, a couple years ago in 2022, when I came on board, we founded an AIET, Emerging Technology Partnership. We're engaging with the public to say, what are the issues? How should we solve for these in a way that meets the balance that we're trying to strike? That within the agency itself, which I think part of your question gets to this, we want to be rapid adopters of AI where we can, while we're converting all of our COBOL code to new systems. So we want to be rapid adopters, but we want to make sure we're adopting in a safe, reliable, unbiased way. And so when ChatGPT came out, we sent a message around immediately saying, not saying no, saying not yet. So we want to make sure that we're not feeding your idea that you think we're going to keep private into AI. So we're very conscious of all of that. We're working across government on AI policy when it comes to all of that. We're also using AI for things like search so that we can find what's out there so we can issue you a stronger patent. And then even within the USPTO, we have a sandbox that we can all play in. My colleagues and I can go into this and experiment in a safe way to say, is this a good use case where we could adopt it within the agency and it would help improve our jobs? And all of this is through a human-centered approach. We're not looking to offload the judgment our patent examiners have or our trademark examining attorneys have to AI. We're looking to supplement so that we can support them in their jobs. Thank you.
All right. Unfortunately, we are out of time, but please join me in thanking our panelists today.
Good job. Good job.
Director Vidal and Rob Berry, who is the manager of the Patent and Trademark Resource Center program. You will be cutting our cake, so go ahead and head to the back. And then for our live stream audience, thank you so much for attending. For those who are in person, we have several IP workshops. Oh, they are right here on the screen. So happening at 2:45. If you stay in here, you'll get an intro to intellectual property, and then there's a class on patent searching, trademark searching, and then there's a meet the USPTO examiners and attorneys where you can grill them with all of your questions. And then later we have a little break, and then at 4 we have 4 different discussions on different topics: IP in life sciences and medical devices, IP in outdoor recreation, sports, and clothing design. If you stay in here, it'll be IP in AI, games and fintech, and then also IP in art and fashion. Thank you so much for attending. We appreciate it.